Welcome all the students and learner here in the second week of my paper. Today's session's topic is community dynamics. So throughout, today's session as well as the coming of sessions would be around the community dynamics. The major topic which I am going to cover in the second week would be about community dynamics, integrative and disintegrative process in the community. That is what the part of the community dynamic. Conflicts and resolution strategies. That's also the part of the dissociative dynamics of the community. Community power structure, leadership, definition and types, and the theories of. And then objective of this unit means at the end of this unit, you are able to understand the different aspect of the community, the cohesion, the integrative process, and then disintegrative process. And overall, you are also going to understand the division and the unity within the community. So could identify the cultural aspect and then conflict within the community. You will understand and develop the skills to manage those and to resolve the conflict and then competition that is there in the community. And you will gain insight into the power structure within a community, which is very important to understand the community dynamic. So any kind of the programs or once you are there in a community, you will be more successful. So because communities are critical to conceptualize, executing and sustaining development projects of all sorts. In developing nations, communities take part in the development initiatives by way of community organization and participation. So by understanding the overall dynamics, you can maximize the participation of the community. Until you don't understand the power structure, you don't know the leadership there in the community, and how you can develop further leadership within a community. So these all are very crucial for a community worker or for a social worker to be understand and to be skillful enough. So first session of the first week is about understanding community dynamics, the general concept. So anything which is, what is dynamic first, right? Anything which is not static and ever changing is considered to be dynamic. And definitely community is ever changing. It's not static. You just remember any community and you can realize and visualize today's day of that same community, how the community has been changed. What make this community change and what this changes is because of how the dynamics play important role in bringing changes or not, right? So keeping in mind all this things, so we have to understand that dynamics of the community, and here we have to understand the dynamic from the two perspectives or from the two aspects. One thing, community structure, another thing, community's process. All right. So the change in the community brought about by social, cultural and environmental experiences, whether it is positive or negative, that is we are going to discuss later on. So that actually impacted the community, right? So community dynamics is a way to analyze evolving communities. Once you analyze the community dynamics, you could understand how the community has been evolving, and you can also anticipate what is going to be the next. So let's discuss one by one community structure as a dynamic and community's process, how they actually resulted into the dynamics of the community and bringing change into the community. So community dynamic as a structure. So structure means here, it could be further divided into two, as I have shown you, composition and spatial distribution, means geographical distribution. So first is about composition within the structural part. So this composition is about the number, size and placement of population within a community, as referred to as a composition or geographical location or distribution. See, first thing is about the size. Size means whether the community is larger enough or the smaller community, the kind of the community's population, the elder more, or the community is having more younger generation. What is the sex ratio? How many males? How many females out of males is living over there? What is the overall demographic characteristic of that community? That is about the composition and population of any site. So the question arises: does this affect to the community or affect to the community dynamics? Surely, because communities with larger population may be better able to allocate resources and make decisions. They can pool with more and more ideas. If they have more resources, means they have more human resources. So power dynamics may be influenced by the relative number of subgroups within that community, which can affect whether a minority group feels represented or marginalized. So within every community, there are some groups which is not been taking part in many communities, not all, but majority of the communities. For example, taking the example of Dalit communities or scheduled caste communities, they have many times they have been excluded in the community. So it happened into the little larger communities. So how much they are participating or not. So these all actually making the community dynamics. Multi-ethnicity, if the or socio-economic grouping is there, or what is the status strata of the community, how the community has been divided into the class and all. So this all diversity of the community comes under the demographic aspect, and then that gives the structure to the community and their community's overall roles and norms. So how the community is being organized around the different institution. Then if the community is homogeneous, so this means that the kind of the community or the members they living over there, so they are on the basis of, not definitely of course not the basis of the age, because every community constituted of the parents and then children and then grandparents, so of different ages. So they are the similarity or homogeneity on the basis of the culture, homogeneity on the basis of the religion, homogeneity maybe on the basis of the caste, homogeneity maybe on the basis of the the kind of the value system they do believe into, like the tribal community and so. So they were the smaller community. So whether the community is smaller or the larger or the diverse or the homogeneous, that all affects to the community dynamics and then overall the structure of the community. Okay. Moving ahead, the second part or the second explanation of the kind of type, not the type actually, but this is about the type. So second type is about the geographical layout and spatial distribution. So earlier one was about the composition that actually resulted into the structure. Second is about the geographical layout and spatial distribution that is resulted to the structure of the community. So composition actually affects social diversity, the balance of power between groups, and that community's ability to collaborate or compete. Spatial distribution here means influences how population interact, share resources and form networks, as well as the accessibility of resources and services. Usually it has been observed that a community usually living in clusters or living in groups where the resources are high. For example, we have already witnessed and we are very much aware about that since the time the human societies or the inception of the human community, they have living, all the civilization living around the water bodies, right? Be it Indus Valley civilization or any other civilization, right? So this spatial distribution is so much influenced by the geographical layout or the kind of the physical features, the kind of the resources available. And it is also in the later on, once we will discuss about the power structure, you can easily identify that how the resources of the community is being occupied by few power centers, right? So this all actually are very important, this all geographical layout and the spatial distribution, how they are impacting to the overall dynamics of the community, actually restrict some and allow some to participate in the community development or overall the community's activities. So dynamics in a community from the process perspective, usually community dynamics has been studied from the process perspective largely or mainly. So the process perspective, like first is about the change over time. Because changes of the population like social conventions, technology and economic condition, communities are never static. The fabric of communal life is altered by this continuous transformation. So demographic change is one thing that changes in the population age, distribution, even the migration is one important phenomena that is actually resulted to the demographic change in particular area. If the more youth are migrating from one area to other, so that community has been left behind by their wives or the female mainly and by their parents, that is the older population. So many communities in present day India has witnessed the out migration, and because of that the left behind population is having a lot of the issues. Cultural and value shifts. So definitely after, particularly if you look into the globalization of every community have shifted their culture and value system and value skills, particularly taking the example of urban areas or metropolitan cities where you can see that a new culture has been developed, that is the metropolitan culture, which is common to all over the world, which is not like that the culture of that particular area, but it is what later on we will also discuss about the assimilation and acculturation, then you will better understand this whole idea. So, a community cultural composition and values may evolve over time, particularly in response to the globalization, exposure to new ideas, or demographic fluctuations. Most currently, flexibility and inclusion may result from the changes, but the community may also have generational or cultural conflicts. See, this is one very important factor, that every generation, it's a fight. It's a fight. Generational gap is there is always a fight between the two generations. Every generation, the older generation says that and believe that their culture, their value system were much better than the present day culture, and so that this present day culture once became the older culture, so they say the same to their coming generation, so that our culture is better than your culture, our time was much better than your time. So this is what, because there's a shift, there's always a cultural shift. So the last 30 years, the whole world, particularly if I take the example of India, have experienced a tremendous change in all sphere of their life, particularly economic life definitely, and then cultural, and then whole value shifts has been there. Okay, there are hundreds of examples of this cultural and then value shifts has been happened in the community, in the community's process. And economic transition. Economic transition usually see that how the community has been evolved from simple economic activities to the more complex. Any villages have any kind of the industries and small factories even open. So the overall the community's pattern and the behavior has been changed. While talking about the culture and value shifts in economic transition, one very interesting example just come into my mind. I recall working with a tribal community. I was working during my initial years. So I was working with the tribal communities, I have already mentioned. So I once asked to an elder tribal there in the Jharkhand, that how he felt about the changes brought about by external intervention, like by the organization where I was working, or any kind of the governmental intervention. So he responded very straight or very frankly, that saying that he did not like the changes. Maybe the younger generation like, but I don't like the changes, because they have now, and we are now bound to wear the clothes that we didn't earlier. And we also now forced to close our doors. Earlier we never used any locks in our doors, because now the society has been stratified, and there is a variation in the overall economic status in the community, because after the involvement of the kind of intervention that has been, maybe the microfinancing and all, whoever has participated in microfinances, they became better off than compared to the others who are not participating. So it was not actually very happy with the kind of changes. This is what, my dear, development is very subjective. The development which is maybe for me, it's not the development for many of you, and development for you may be not the development for any others. So it's a very subjective thing. So that's why it's very important to understand the community dynamics. Don't go in a community with the kind of the preconceived notion that whatever you know, that is what the reality. So because that everyday reality has been changed, and every culture is having their own very significant reality, that is what their cultural and value skills. So some don't like to be changed because they retain their cultural things, and some community wants change. So you have to be very careful whether the community wants change. If the change, so what kind of change, right? So moving ahead, interpersonal connections. So interpersonal connection between people and groups are fundamental to community dynamics, although they may sometimes result in conflict and division. So these connections promote collaboration, communication, and trust. Interpersonal connection. So that is about social cohesion. So high levels of mutual support and trust are frequently the outcome of strong constructive interaction. Second is about the social networks. So if the community is having the strong networks, that is the informal, or they are sharing the resources, so strong network even with other community, or they have more resources to network, they could facilitate the number of the programs and policies by the government and of the government. So if the community members is having a good networks, or the leader is more powerful, so he can draw the different programs for the community. So definitely it is going to bring changes for that community. Power dynamics and conflict. So tensions can also arise in interpersonal interaction, particularly if some groups feel excluded or marginalized. So this all happened in many communities, that some communities believe that they have not been taken part, and they are not allowed to taking part into that community part in any kind of the discussions, any kind of the developmental aspects. So they feel not connected with the community. So this is again, you have to look into that, what kind of the power dynamics are there, what kind of the leadership is there. So if so you try to level best to develop the leadership from the every section of the community. This is very important. So then you can think that in actual sense you are able to make participation from everyone. Response to environmental change. So this is what environmental factors such as catastrophes, climate changes, any kind of the even the economic changes and political changes happen in the community, so have a continuous impact on the communities. And if you look into the only the ecological changes and environmental, very purely physical term, environmental changes has been there. So it is the truth of today's world, and this whole climate change and environmental issues has been there. Many communities actually not realize, but the communities living in the rural areas are so much relying on the natural nature for the rainfall and all. So they could understand, and they are actually feeling a lot of the issues, that they're having a lot of the issues because of this whole environmental change. So environment has changed now. But environmental change here means not only the physical environment, that is the climate, rather also the economic environment, or the environment related to the political scenario and all. So for that, any community is good in adaptability and resilience. So the communities definitely is going to fight back, and they will survive. So vulnerability, communities who lack infrastructure or in heavily reliant on certain environmental resources, for them may difficult to adjust in the any kind of the things has been happened. So environmental pressure can cause vulnerable population to disintegrate or destabilized, which can result in social instability, migration, or economic losses. So in many communities, these all problems create a lot of these issues, and so further culminated into the different kind of the changes happen in the community. Innovation in resource management. So innovation in infrastructure, technology, and resources management are frequently used by communities to address environmental issues. Communities can prosper in spite of shifting environmental condition if they adopt sustainable methods such as adaptive agriculture or renewable energy. See, whenever I discussed about the community, so sometimes visualization happened. So not only visualize only to the rural areas, you can also, and you have to visualize also the urban areas, the slum population as well, along with definitely along with the rural communities, because as we have discussed and defined the different communities, we can understand very easily that 75% of the village people or the rural people are relying on the agriculture. So for them, this is somehow is more important, and they are more illiterate, they have more vulnerable, they have more issues too, definitely. So you can and you should visualize rural more, but you also cannot ignore the fact there are many issues and concern for the urban community and urban slum dwellers. So keeping in mind and visualize all those communities while discussing and understanding and looking into these topics. This one, the last aspect of the process, is the feedback loops or feedback mechanism. Very important, because it's crucial in shaping community. It's about, in order to comprehend how communities change over time, feedback loops are essential. Future dynamics and behavior might be influenced by these interactions, which have the potential to either encourage change, that is positive feedback, or reverse change, negative feedback. Means something is happening good, so community is accepting, but they realize and anticipate that this is not good. I mean, this is going to hamper the further growth and development. This is not good for the community, so they just put stop into that. That is what the negative feedback. If any community is not good enough to anticipate, to realize, or to analyze this negative, or not taking this negative feedback seriously, so the problem would definitely arise. So this is what the positive and negative feedback both are very important. How this positive feedback actually impacted? So through community engagement, active participation by community members in events and activities can result in better outcomes and inspire greater participation for further. For instance, a town that hosts cleanup drives may witness a rise in environmental consciousness and community pride, which may encourage more locals to participate in future projects. You see that after many programs that once it has been done in one community, so another communities also became motivated to participate and to do the same. So this is what the community engagement, this is a positive feedback loops. Community has seen that this is something good for them, so they actually try to adapt, and that adaptation is definitely through participation is actually giving a positive outcome for that community. Amplification of resources, that is a cycle of economic growth, is created when prosperous local market or firms draw in more client, which may encourage the formation of new enterprises. Usually it happened that one market and one shops is open in particular area, and as it grow, so another entrepreneurs or other businessmen also think to open the market in that areas also, because that is having a good potential. So this is what amplification of resources. One resource has been opened or been utilized. So the next resources also started coming up in the same loop. So that is what the positive feedback or loops. So negative feedback loop is what? Like environment, for taking the example first. So environmental conservation, if I take the example, to counteract climate change, initiatives like reforestation, wetland restoration and promotion of renewable energy sources aim to reduce carbon emission and restore ecological balance. So community has actually resilient, and they know that if they don't do this, they are going to be, there are a lot of the issues and the problem would arise for the community. Maybe the water scarcity or the infertility of the land and all. So they have to, actually, by understanding this negative feedback which is being prevailed in that community that time, they have to prepare themselves and they work accordingly. That is what the negative feedback, and that's very important. Even sometimes I do believe that more than a positive, negative feedback is so important. So that is what the counteracting changes. Counteracting changes means action or strategies that aim to prevent or lessen specific trends of development within a system are referred as counteracting changes. These alteration may be unintended consequences or detrimental effects of the particular behavior of dynamics. Restoring equilibrium, fostering stability, or guaranteeing the communities or systems continued sustainability are the objective of countering changes. So if anything you feel that the community feel that it is going to be hampered, so in contrast to that, so they have developed a counter activity so that the negative impact of that particular behavior, that particular aspect has to be minimized, and then again equilibrium of the community could be retained and could be sustained and could be redeveloped. So avoiding overextension. Overextension means if something is opened in particular area, so usually it has been seen that the out of overexcitement and they feel that okay, this is good, and everyone who's participating, that is over extension of anything is not good, is considered to be a negative, and the community is good enough to control that, so that community would survive further. So by warning community leaders about the possible drawbacks of the fast expansion, feedback system might encourage them to put policies in place that will guarantee sustainability. Next is the stabilization of community dynamics. Community-led mediation invites can help resolve disputes and conflicts by promoting understanding and stabilizing relationship. Next is dynamic interplay. Dynamic interplay is what? Interplay between the negative and positive feedback loops. So actually overall dynamics is the result of the overall interaction between all those structure and process. Here particularly about the dynamics of the negative and positive loopholes. So complex dynamics within the community are typically created by the interaction of positive and negative feedback loops. For example, a community project that is initially successful may draw more people to participate, but in order to control expansion sustainability, because this is not going to good for the community, extra expansion. So negative feedback mechanism will need to take over if resources is not available and then expansion has been there. So definitely is going to negatively impact it to the community. So the leaders and then whoever is the policy maker and or the community worker has to put some kind of the control over this. So this is what the negative feedback. Let's define the community dynamics from the different major perspective and major through different ways. This is very common. Usually whenever we talk about the community dynamics, so we see that associative and dissociative or disintegrative approaches or disintegrative aspect or social process within a community, how they actually interplay to give the dynamics of the community. So as per the German sociologist George Simmel has divided the whole process into broadly into two types. One is the associative and another is a dissociative. That is also called associative as integrative and disintegrative. So associative or integrative forces is the social process refer to interaction that bring individuals or groups together. See, before coming to the whole topic of this associative and dissociative, first you understand what is that. So, it is the associative process are also called the integrative or a conjunctional social process, which are essential for the integration and progress of any society, that how the community is cooperating, how they are accommodating to each other, how they are assimilating, how the acculturation has been there. Because in the present day world, there's a diverse nature of the community. You could be working with any immigrant community or the migrant community to the urban community, with the slum community, with any rural community, with any tribal community. So there are a wide range, and within that there are many sub communities are there, maybe on the basis of the gender, on the basis of the caste, on the basis of the class. So further there are a lot chances that you could work with a different kind of the communities, right? So you have to understand the very different and varied nature of the community and its dynamics. So first is about as in under the associative or integrative forces, that is what interaction, that is talking about the interaction, how the individuals and groups happen in the community and bring changes. So that is through cooperation, accommodation, assimilation and acculturation. So let's start with cooperation. So the term cooperation derives origin from the two Latin words, co meaning together and operare meaning to work. So cooperation it therefore means together working or joint actively for the achievement of common goals. Cooperation requires a common purpose or goals, that is very important. So that's why I just highlighted this. Cooperation requires a common purpose or goal to take place. So cooperation, why is someone cooperating in certain things? Until they don't realize that this particular goal is their own goal. So once the community realizes that this common goal, this goal is for them also, so they definitely participate and they cooperate in any kind of the activity. Fairchild defines cooperation is the process by which the individual or groups combine their efforts is a more or less organized way for the attainment of common objective. So combine their efforts. Efforts has to be combined by everyone, or if not everyone, so at least the majority, whoever is trying to participate and they're participating. Organized way, it's a very kind of the organized way, the who will do what kind of the role, who will be the leader and all. And the most important thing, the binding force is about this is the binding force, right? It's not working. This is the binding force. What is binding force? This common objective is the binding force. So in community dynamics, cooperation refers to the joint endeavors of people and groups pursuing shared objectives in order to accomplish goals that benefit the entire community. It entails sharing resources, expertise and responsibilities. So anyways, community cooperate through their participation, either through their sharing their resources or sharing their expertise, and many of them are participating just to give their own, taking their own responsibility. So depending upon the kind of ability, the kind of the things they have, they could participate. So that is what the cooperation, right? So we can also identify the required condition for this process is the common end process, that is very important. Collective problem solving means everyone is agreed the way or the approach is that okay, this is the common goal and how we are going to do this and how we reach to that goal, how we attain that goal. So end means everyone has to be agreed on those. End, that is the goal, and the means, the approach, how to receive this goal, how to attain this goal. So this cooperation in both the terms is very important on the common goal, that everyone relate to that goal as well as they agree the aspect or the approach to attain that goal. Okay, moving ahead with the next associative aspect is about the accommodation. So accommodation, one of the other important integrative process, it is in fact sort of cooperation among people after their conflict. So this is what the difference. And accommodation is a cooperation after certain kind of the conflict, maybe small or larger, that is another aspect. So it is, once the conflict comes to an end, the cooperation is the part. Cooperation is the second stage. Because conflict cannot continue for an indefinite period, so and must be resolved at some stage. The end of the conflict directs the way of the accommodation. Gillen has very beautifully explained that accommodation is the process by which competing and conflicting individuals and groups adjust their relationship to each other in order to overcome the difficulties which arise in competition and contraventions or conflicts. So definitely there are many issues arises, and the kind of the tension and anxiety has always been there once you are in any competition or any kind of the conflicting behavior or conflicting environment. So accommodation involves the modification or compromises made by individuals or groups to resolve conflicts, reduce tension and foster peaceful coexistence. It is an adaptive process that allows communities to function smoothly despite differences. So without accommodation, societies cannot maintain its balance. See, this is what again the highlighter points, highlighting this point. Without accommodation, society cannot maintain its balance. So to maintain a balance, if there is no accommodation, this means the conflict is still there. So accommodation is so important for the smooth functioning or the process of any community. Moving ahead, so characteristic of accommodation. So very first characteristic is a universal process. Cursory review of the world history reveals that accommodation has been around in one way or the other, irrespective of the society. So it's a universal process of any community, of any nation. So this is a universal process because conflict is the universal thing, and you cannot avoid conflict. So once the conflict is there, you have to actually try to overcome that, and that first step that you overcome from the conflict is the accommodation. Next is a continuous process. So conflict, whether it is small in nature or at a high degree, is within the social life are inevitable. Wherever and wherever conflict will occur, accommodation definitely has to take place. So accommodation therefore is not limited to any fixed social situation or setting. It could be anywhere, it could be any place. Both conscious and unconscious process. So many a time you consciously do that. Many a time unconsciously it happened that after a certain period of the time, the conflicts, the nature of the conflict, the degree of the conflict has been reduced, and so you try to overcome to those tension, and then conflicts and then competition arises because of the conflict, and it's very unconsciously it happened after 10 years or 15 years. It's happened in many a time that you actually forget the intensity of the conflict and you try to develop a good relationship. So unconsciously many times it's a small within a small span of time, consciously maybe the community members try to resolve certain conflicts. So it's very consciously they try to accommodate with the things and with the issues concerned to that particular that conflict. End result of conflict, so we have already discussed on this. Moving ahead, assimilation. So it is a process whereby persons and groups acquire the culture of other group in which they come to live by adopting its attitudes and values in parameters, patterns of thinking and behaving, in short, its way of life. It is more permanent than accommodation and is only possible if the process of accommodation has been achieved already. So assimilation is what? Is the one step ahead to this accommodation. Okay, so the highlighter of this assimilation is the new culture, which is unimportant, is submerged into the dominant culture. So in assimilation is yet another integrative associative social process which is significant in understanding community dynamics. It is also one of the social adjustment. Assimilation can be observed in the context of urban migration. For instance, when people from rural areas move to metropolitan cities like Bombay, Bangalore, Delhi, anywhere, they often adopt urban customs, language and lifestyles. Over time, migrants may begin to blend their traditional practices with those of the urban environment, such as integrating local cuisines into their cooking or participating in city-wise festivals celebrating New Year's and all the kind of the urban festivals kind of the things. It is more permanent than accommodation. So keeping in mind, it is more permanent than accommodation because accommodation is after the conflict and it's maybe for a certain period of time. Assimilation is about the cultural diffusion. So it is more, it's more permanent in nature. So according to the Pogardas, this assimilation is seen as a process that unites the attitudes of many individuals, enabling them to form a cohesive group. This highlights the social aspects of assimilation, emphasizing how shared attitudes and beliefs foster a sense of belonging and identity among members. Same way, Harden and Hunt say that assimilation is a process of mutual cultural diffusion, where persons and groups come to share a common culture. This definition underscores the interactive nature of assimilation. When cultural exchange and adaptation occur as individuals and groups engage with one another, leading to the blending of culture, practice, and the emergence of a shared identity. Means you can imagine in the metropolitan cities where the people from the north, from the south, they all coming together from the northeast and all. So they have all actually merged into the urban culture. So the new set of the culture, and it's not like they are forgetting their own culture, but it's like adapting others' culture and giving your own culture. It's a two-way process. Let's discuss about the characteristics. You will be better understand this topic. So characteristic of assimilation is what? A universal process. It is an unconscious process, a slow and gradual process. It is a two-way process. So universal process, definitely no culture in the world history has been possible without assimilation. We see that how in India the Britishers came, and then many Mughals came, and so acculturation and assimilation happened, and present day Indian culture is a result of that. In our languages it's all reflects. So this is what the that's why it's a universal process. And again, we are Indians migrating to any other country, so they also giving their reflection to their culture, and then they adapted their culture. So it's a two-way process, right? It's a slow and gradual because unconsciously it happens. So it's a slow and gradual. Unlike accommodation, which is consciously done, assimilation happens gradually and consciously more. The member of the society unconsciously assimilate refer to the ways in which individuals or groups adapt the norms, values, and behavior of a dominant culture without explicit awareness of intention, or they're aware about that they are actually assimilating the new culture. Next one is the acculturation. The study of acculturation is the study of one aspect of cultural change. In case of two different cultures coming together, the study attempts to answer the phenomenon of adapting to each other's behavior, language, beliefs, values, social institution, and technologies. So acculturation comprehends those phenomena which result when groups of individuals having different cultures come into continuous first-hand contact with subsequent changes in the original culture patterns of either or both groups. Acculturation is study of cultural transmission process. So this is what little difference from assimilation. In assimilation, it's a two-way process where maybe the people from the north and south coming together in a metropolitan city. The people from the north, they actually learned some of the cuisine from the south, and south will learn some of the from the north. It's a two-way process. But acculturation, where migrants are moving into the host area, so they are actually adapting the culture of that dominant community or the host communities, and they keep their cultural values intact, but not dominating in their life. So first thing is about, and again this is very slowly and gradually it happened. Characteristic of acculturation are like, it is a gradual, it is not a conscious process, that it is unconscious. So gradual means slow. Acculturation takes place gradually and over multiple generations. So maybe you migrated, so next generation is going to acculture that new host area. It often involves ongoing negotiation between cultural identities and practices. An immigrant family, for example, moves to a new country. Initially, they speak their native languages at home and may struggle with the local language. Over time, as their children attend schools and interact with peers, they start to learn the local language. Gradually, the family incorporate the new language into daily life, eventually leading to a bilingual environment. When the children might primarily use the local language while still retaining their native language for family interaction. It is not a conscious process. Acculturation is to a large extent not a conscious process. For example, immigrants living in a particular country are often unaware of the degree to which they have adapted culture of the country. It is only revealed when they return to their homelands after having lived in one country for a number of years. So do they realize how much they have changed? Because now they got realized that they are not adjusting into the new, the kind of environment where they already, born and brought up, but that the kind of the acculturation happened to them is more prominent. Issues in acculturation is John Berry has identified two major issues: desire to maintain heritage and culture. This is the problem with every kind of the immigrants people. First thing is the desire to maintain heritage and culture, because everyone loves their culture, and second is the desire to contact with the larger society, and this is another issue. And both are contradictory to each other, because desire to maintain heritage and the cultural values of their own, and at the same time you also desire to contact the larger society and adapt it, and you want it to be accepted by the by the host community. So both are contradictory, and so this is the what the issues and then problem sometimes happen, right? So this is all about the present session. I hope that you understand this whole idea of associative aspect of the community dynamics, and then how the process and then culture and process and then structure of the community gives birth to the different dynamics of the different community. Thank you so much.